Peter Aldous.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. There are 3 amendments to which I would like to speak, highlighting some concerns as to why the Government are opposing changes to the bill made in the other place, which at face value appear to have some merit, and also seeking further clarification as to what they are doing to address those particular concerns. Firstly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I shall turn to Amendment 22, which a number of colleagues and honourable friends on this side of the House have mentioned, and that relates to local authorities holding virtual meetings. I'm speaking as a Vice President of SALC, that's the Suffolk Association of Local Councils. The feedback which I have received from all tiers of local government in Suffolk is that they are supportive of the Lord's amendment, which the Government are opposing. I acknowledge the Government's view that a core principle of local democracy is that citizens should be able to attend local council meetings, to interact in person with their local representatives. However, instead of an absolute bar on virtual attendance, I would suggest that allowing local discretion, pursuing a common-sense approach, is more appropriate. And that's for the following reasons. Firstly, 90 to 95% of councils at all levels, based on their own individual experiences, support such an approach, which is endorsed by the Local Government Association, the National Association of Local Councils, and the Society of Local Council Clerks. Secondly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, many town and parish councils do have difficulties in retaining a full slate of councillors. They regularly have to co-opt new members, and contested elections are invariably the exception rather than the rule. Allowing some local discretion with regard to the holding of local council meetings would remove barriers to becoming a councillor for such groups as the disabled, parents, carers, and full-time workers. These groups all have a great deal to contribute to their local communities, and many of them are put off by a straitjacket of being expected to attend all council meetings in person. Thirdly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, some local councils, such as Suffolk County Council and the Broads Authority, which straddles both Suffolk and Norfolk, they cover very large geographical areas, and one has to ask whether it is appropriate to require councillors to drive up to an hour and a half for a meeting, and I'm thinking of a journey from, say, Bungay in North Suffolk in my constituency down to Ipswich. That is a 3-hour round trip at a time when we are seeking to encourage less use of our cars as we strive towards net zero. That those attending these meetings on that basis is expensive, it's time-consuming, and it's inappropriate when we should be looking to lessen our carbon footprint.
Would my friend give way on that point?
I will give way.
I'm very grateful to my friend for giving way. Does he not think there's something of an inconsistency that company board meetings can be conducted virtually? During COVID, Parliament itself was attended virtually, but parish council meetings can't.
I agree entirely with my right honourable friend on that point, and it is an issue that, coming out of COVID, a lot of parish councils have made to me, and it is disappointing that what I think are, from their perspective, well-reasoned cases for, and they're not going to go daft. You know, there is a nightmare scenario, perhaps, of local councillors never leaving their homes and, as a result, being abstract from the communities that they represent. But they won't do that. They will be very mindful of their responsibilities, and they will use this provision, as I said, sensibly, and at a time when we're talking about sort of cascading down responsibilities to local authorities, it does appear slightly perverse to be sort of saying, no, you've got to do it this way. My second point, Mr. Deputy Speaker, relates to Amendments 46 and 327, which require the Secretary of State to promote healthy homes and neighbourhoods for a regulatory framework for planning in the built environment. The Government, as we've heard, are seeking to strike out these amendments on the basis that they will cut across the actions that they are already taking to improve the quality of new homes, and that they will create uncertainty and the risk of legal challenge and delay. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would readily accept this argument if the existing policy was working well, but it's not. It is complex and it is focused only on risk reduction. We should bear in mind that from a high-quality home, a whole host of benefits ensue and cascade down. Better health and less pressure on the NHS. An enhanced environment for learning, for doing homework, for passing those exams and getting those qualifications that enable people to realise their life ambitions. And thereby that ensures social mobility. And this in turn leads to improved national economic productivity. If the Government are to strike out these amendments, they do need to fast-track their reviews of the Decent Homes and the Future Homes standards and to put them in a coherent, positive and ambitious framework. Finally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Amendment 45, which requires the Secretary of State to have a special regard to climate change mitigation and adaptation in preparing national policy, planning policy and advice relating to the development or use of land. Likewise, as we've heard, the Government opposed this amendment on the basis that it could trigger a slew of litigation which would hinder action needed to safeguard the environment and repeats existing policy and statutory requirements and the importance, and they also say that the importance of the environment is already restated in the bill. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I take this on board, though I would highlight three concerns. Firstly, it should be pointed out that to achieve our net zero obligations, there is a need for an enormous amount of private sector investment. As the UK Green Building Council point out, pension funds, corporate investors and construction companies, they require clarity, consistency and certainty in the policy framework. At present, this is missing, and the business and investment community are confused. Secondly, the existing system has created an inconsistency whereby local authorities must take net zero into account in developing their local plans, but the Planning Inspectorate and the Secretary of State, as we've heard on a number of occasions, do not have to give net zero the same level of consideration. At the very least, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if this Lord's amendment does not stand, the Government do need to remove this ambiguity as quickly as possible. Finally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm mindful that in my own backyard in Waveney, in Suffolk and across East Anglia, we are at the forefront of the challenges and opportunities arising from climate change. We have an exposed and vulnerable coast. We are low-lying and prone to flooding, and we are the driest region in the UK. That said, we do have great economic opportunities arising from the low-carbon economy in the form of offshore wind, nuclear and hydrogen. Mr. Deputy Speaker, local authorities and local businesses in the eastern region have innovative plans to best address these threats and to maximise the benefits arising from these opportunities. However, as matters stand at present, they are constrained by the inconsistencies that I've outlined. A greater emphasis on climate change mitigation would provide, I would suggest, some certainty and would help attract that investment, that private sector investment that I've mentioned, which, as we're seeing, is very globally footloose. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would just summing up. These are concerns that I have. I acknowledge that this bill should not be seen as the panacea for all our ills. I've listened to the assurances that the Minister has, my honourable friend the Minister, has provided, and I hope that in her summing up, she might be able to allay some of the concerns that I've outlined. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Wind-ups, the Minister.